What's up everyone, Michael aka Spirit Shard here with an impressions review of Devil Daggers, what the developer calls a return to retro style first person shooters, but really what he's trying to say is that it's an arena shooter that's very Twitch based, and obviously I'll talk about that kind of explanation a little bit later in the video because it's kind of something that bothers me about it. Not that the game is bad though, the game has actually had a really very positive reception right off the bat, right as soon as it released, and for good reason. There's a lot of good things about this game. There are a few things in the way that it's kind of marketed that kind of bother me a little bit, mostly with that retro gaming style thing, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, let's go ahead and go into it and get rid of that annoying siren noise. It fits the aesthetic, but anyways, let's go ahead and look at the options real quick. So you got your input options, so you got your left-handed mode, you got an invert y-axis, there should be an invert x-axis as well. That's always nice to see. And I don't know too many people that use it, but I do know some people that actually do use it, so that is the thing. Then you have your look speed. That's going to be your look sensitivity. Keyboard configuration, you can rebind everything. There's only a single key. I would like to see double binding, but I don't think you really need it in this game. You can also reset the default, and then you also have your audio. There is no music in this game, so a single audio slider kind of works, and then it saves once you hit back. And then you also have leaderboards. This is actually a huge thing in this game. Now, I don't have too many friends that have it, and I haven't actually gotten that far. This is actually going to be something I'll have to talk about later. But you can actually go on to and look at the leaderboards. And one thing about the leaderboards is you can actually watch replays of everyone. So if you wanted to, like, let's say you have the game and you wanted to go and watch, like, high-level players, you can actually just go watch them, which is super cool. Anyways, let's go ahead and click play. It's going to start us off, and we're going to look around. Oh, my God, look at that. It is a dagger. Now, right off the bat, you'll notice the graphics. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, I want to cover the gameplay. So we're going to be running around, and it is an arena shooter, so we're in our little arena here. It is black, and there are skulls that are flying at us, and we are going to kill things. Now you're going to be able to shoot. You get a little shotgun, so this is actually based on your clicks. You're holding down the click is actually going to be this rapid fire thing, and then your clicks are actually going to be a shotgun. There's also a homing attack thing, which I think you unlock after you get to a certain point. I haven't actually been able to use it, but I've seen it in the replays of other people playing it, because I had to watch some of the replays to actually see some of the content in this game, because it is a very difficult game, which is actually where I kind of want to start off. And I died already. That was lame. It is very quick pace, and once you die, you just hit retry. You can also hit R to retry as well, so I just hit R. Let's say I'm running and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fail, and let's say I'm trying to, you know, get a lot score, so you can just jump off the thing. You can just hit R and it'll just restart without going to the leaderboard, so it is nice for just retrying really quickly. Now, the game is very Twitch-based, so I'm not going to be too great at the game, especially with my current setup with recording, because I literally have a cardboard box on my lap, which my mic is sitting on so that I can record properly. Not a topic for the video. But ultimately, you're going to want a high click accuracy and stuff like that to be able to actually play this game properly, and I'm doing terrible at this. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be running around trying to strafe and avoid things. And one interesting thing is that people have actually been doing a lot of the kind of weird advanced stuff with this game as well, with the Twitch stuff. Like watching higher level players, it's ridiculous. It looks like a bot's playing. But no, it's actually a person, and they're streaming it and stuff like that. It's ridiculous, some of the stuff you can do in this game. But for a casual standpoint, maybe this isn't very good, because it is actually very difficult, and you will die very quickly. Now, one thing about the game is that it actually kind of plays on, it calls itself the retro style thing, which has, you know, the graphic style and the kind of idea that it is a very Twitch-based kind of game. But one of the interesting things about this game is actually the amount of advanced mechanics that it has within it. Now, the concept of it is very simple. You can shoot, you can use a homing attack, and you can fire constantly. And you can jump as well, and you can strafe and stuff like that. But there's a lot of little small things as well. So you can bunny hop, which actually makes it so that you speed up a little bit. You can boost your speed. You can double jump using the thing that I actually aimed down real quick. I haven't gotten far enough to actually have a use for this, but if you're running and you can actually just shoot the ground while you're jumping, it'll actually speed you up, and you can keep that going through bunny hops and stuff like that. And then also, you know, there's the Twitch different stuff, so it's like, oh, certain enemies are going to be better off running up and just shotgunning them, I've found out. And so these guys, you have to shoot like a certain little spot, and certain enemies will have certain weak points and stuff like that. So there's a lot of like little advanced mechanics that you don't always see in these types of shooters. So it's not just aim at things and shoot them until they die and hope that you live long enough. I almost ran off of the stage there. But it does have a lot of these little advanced mechanics. So if you're the type of person who's going to be into these sort of games and these sort of like high score attack type games, then you might actually find this very entertaining. Now, one thing that I also want to mention is that there's also bosses that appear, like such as that big guy that showed up there. It's kind of like a mini boss sort of thing. there's actual bosses in the game. Now, I haven't actually gotten far enough to get to the bosses, which is sort of disappointing. I've been trying really, really hard. I'm just not good enough at the game. I'm not good at these types of games in general. I do enjoy them, and I have a ton of fun with this game in general. Like, the gameplay is super extremely smooth, but my main problem with it is actually the amount of difficulty that is in the game itself. As in, I wish that there was maybe an easy mode, and so you could see more of the content, because I really, really like the way that the game is kind of set up. I like the fact that it has all these advanced mechanics, but I would like a way to kind of practice the mechanics without having to do the main kind of game mode, which is just kicking my butt in the rear all the time, 24/7, and I'm getting ran by giant evil skulls, which is depressing. I almost got to my high score there. I haven't actually gotten that far, which is super disappointing. So yeah, that's the gameplay, and it's got a lot of advanced sort of things into it, and there's probably mechanics that I haven't even seen before that are in the game as well. Like, supposedly there's different enemy types and stuff like that the farther you go, and so you probably won't be able to see too many enemy types in this game. If you want to see a lot of the higher level stuff, there's tons of that type of content on Twitch and YouTube about, you know, hey, you know, I got this high level play and stuff like that, so you can end up going and looking up that type of stuff for the more advanced stuff. But in general, the gameplay plays like you would expect. It's very, very responsive. The game runs extremely fluidly. Now let's talk about the aesthetic and kind of the sound design of the game. Now, I did say there was no music in the game when I was talking about the music slider, or sound slider, I should say. And that is one thing that some people have kind of said about the game, as in, it has a very, very simple feel to it. But I want to mention right off the bat, the aesthetic, it fits. Most of the time when people say, oh, we have this retro aesthetic, it ends up just being something that would work in any kind of graphical style, like get out of cell shaded or realistic or something like that, and it would generally work. And they're like, oh, it's retro, and they kind of do it like, oh, it's pixely, which makes it retro and stuff like that. And generally it's not done very, very well. This game, however, it has a very specific kind of dark feel to it, to where I feel like the graphics actually help the game a ton. And it makes it feel scary, in a sense. Like, it's a terrifying game, and the sound design really, really helps. Each enemy makes different sounds. When things blow up, they explode. I beat my high score. Yes! Woo! It also has a really, really rewarding feeling when you beat your high score, but I didn't actually get that much farther. And I probably peaked my mic. I apologize for that. I actually got genuinely excited about that. That's weird. Games don't give me that feeling very often. That was exciting. Anyway, so the sound design is also really, really good, as in, now I can't really speak to it too much while I'm recording, because obviously I'm recording, I'm speaking over it, but when I'm sitting here just playing it, trying to get farther and just, you know, experiencing the game, I guess you could say, the way that the sound is in 3D and all that, that's actually really well done, and I would say that's actually a point against it being retro, because sound design in older games wasn't necessarily great, as in, they didn't have the sound technology that they do these days, but they take full advantage of the sound technologies that we have, and they make it so that, you know, you can hear where enemies are coming from, and they have a lot of warning signs, as in, there's certain skulls that will be, like, chasing after you. There's bigger skulls that have horns and stuff like that, to where when they're running towards you, it'll be like, oh, no, it's, you know, it's gonna kill you, because it runs faster than you, unless you're bunny hopping and doing all this advanced tactic stuff. And so you want to kill it really quickly, and when it's behind you, it'll start making a siren noise, and you're like, oh god, I need to turn around and kill it really quick. And so if you're paying attention, you can actually take those cues and use it to your advantage. There's also a lot of things with the timing and enemy hits and stuff like that. Like, it makes it so that you know you're actually hitting enemies when you're hitting enemies. It makes sure you know when there's a boss present. Bosses will make a noise. There's a little saw blade noise when the skulls are close to me and stuff like that. It's just, the way it sounds is so great in the way that it's presented. Like, the presentation of the game is a very, very polished. It feels great, and it runs perfectly. I have not had any performance issues with it whatsoever. It runs solid. Obviously, at this resolution, it better run well. Which kind of runs into the gripes of the game. Now, not everyone's going to be a fan of the aesthetic, and it is very, very simple. And there's honestly, while the game does extend quite far, and I can't really speak too far on the advanced stuff. Sorry, there was a thing I saw at this corner of my eye and it distracted me for a second. Anyways, there's a lot of things like in the game to where when you get really, really far, there's going to be a lot of content with the bosses and stuff like that. But for people who don't get that far, there's actually not going to be a lot that you're seeing. what you see here is pretty much what you're going to be seeing if you're at my skill level. Maybe you can get a little bit farther, but maybe not. I don't know. I haven't really, done too well because maybe I haven't played enough to get farther. This skull bothers the hell out of me. And I died from behind. Ah, man. I don't know how many I tried in this video, but I've probably tried a lot. But that is going to be one thing that people have a complaint with. Now, my main complaint with the game is actually nothing with the game. Like, the game is very polished, and I feel like it's great for what it is. And it's not that expensive either. It's like a $5 title. But my main complaint actually comes in the way that it's marketed. Now, they call it a retro-style game. And I would agree to that to an extent. But in my perception, old-style shooters were always about the kind of levels and the way that they were in labyrinths and kind of, they were mazes, essentially, and that's kind of what I imaged this game would be. So when I heard that it was going to be, retro-inspired, that's what I expected, and I feel like them advertising it in that way kind of skews a lot of the perspective on the game. Now, there are games in the retro style that were like this. They were arena shooters, and so to some people, that's not going to be a big deal. But to me, that kind of skews it a little bit, and I didn't get what I was expecting. Not to say that I got something bad. I actually do enjoy what I got quite a lot, and I feel like the aesthetic is right up my alley. I like dark stuff. I like, horror-inspired kind of aesthetics. It's always been a thing. Skull dragons are freaking awesome, but, overall, not everyone's going to end up liking it either. And that is a general thing I would say about this game. It is a very niche game, and it is going to appeal to a certain type of audience. The Twitch reaction, fast-paced kind of score attack audience is what this game is targeting, and that is the type of people that are going to enjoy the game. But for the casual player, I'm not necessarily sure that people would enjoy playing it so much. You might enjoy running through it, but there are a few times to where maybe you would rather watch somebody play it. It is a very, very entertaining game to watch, and I have found that playing it can be very stressful, as in, it's constantly got these noises going on. It's very horror-inspired. It's like, it's got you on your toes while you're jumping around trying to, get your highest score. And the sound design, it really, really helps with that. And the lighting and stuff like that, and the way that it's presented. And I feel like the pixel art style helps with that as well. It makes it so it feels like horror. Instead of being low-poly skulls, it's a bunch of pixels that are running at you, and they look terrifying because they don't look natural, which is, a big plus. But ultimately, for my conclusion of this, I enjoy it a lot, and I like Twitch-based games. I'm not very good at them. I've never been good at the, retro-style games, but I do enjoy playing them a lot, and I feel like if I took the time to play these enough, I could get good enough to where I'd actually be quite good at them, because I'm not bad at games. I'm decent at them. Not while I'm recording. I'm terrible while I'm recording, because I'm obviously trying to talk about, the mechanics and stuff like that, and getting rammed in the back of the head by skulls, headbangers. Haha, that was a pun. But my ultimate conclusion is, it's definitely going to be a game for a very niche audience. If you're not within the niche audience, I wouldn't recommend picking it up. But if you like watching people play these, maybe you'll want to watch it, and maybe you want to pick it up just to support the developer in these types of games in general. Maybe that's a thing that you want to do. I don't necessarily recommend doing that, but there are some people that have actually done that. There was one person on the forums that was like, I've, watched this game for hours on end, and so they ended up just picking it up because they were watching so much of it, which is interesting. Not everyone's going to see that point of view, but I do see it. But it is fun to play. Maybe you'll play it for like a few minutes. It is only $5, and it is a pretty cheap experience, but yeah. Anyways, this has been Michael, aka Spirit Shard, with Devil Daggers, a quite interesting, I wouldn't call it return to retro. I just call it a really, really good kind of arena shooter that is very, very Twitch-based, with a kind of retro aesthetic that actually works. It feels very much like a PS1 game in its aesthetic, but it runs a hell of a lot better than a PS1 game. I will say the PS1 era had terrible running games, and I'm glad that this game, it took what was good from those retro games and got rid of what was bad about it, except I would like to see maybe the maze-style stuff. Like, having this fast-paced action while having, like, maze labyrinth-type level design would actually be really, really cool. And I kind of hope they look at that and be like, maybe I could expand on top of that, and maybe I could introduce that to this game. But ultimately, I don't feel like it needs it. Like, it's good enough for what it is, and it accomplishes what it wants to do extremely well. And I wish I was better at this, so I could show you guys the bosses and stuff like that, because they do have some really cool designs and a lot of buggy type stuff, and yeah. Not bugs as in bad stuff, as bugs as in, like, insects. Yeah, that was kind of a weird wording. Anyways, like I said, this has been Michael, aka Spirit Shard. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and give me your comments on this game. You know, have you seen it before? Are you checking out this video because you wanted to see more gameplay of it? Because I know some people do that sometimes, you know. It's a very, very fun game to play, and a very, very fun game to watch, and it's strange. Oh, one thing I do want to mention, and I didn't mention before, is that I do wish there was a windowed mode, because I had to use an external program if I wanted to run it in a windowed. Not a big complaint, it just runs in borderless full screen naturally. I didn't mention that early in the video, but that is a thing that I probably should have mentioned. That wasn't something that I feel like mattered too much, so I didn't mention it, but that is a thing regardless. Anyways, see you guys in the next video, and hopefully I can get farther than this game, and then maybe I'll have it in the background in one of my other videos while I'm just completely dominating. But right now, I'm just... I'm so bad. Ooh, hey, a vehicle. Yeah, I wonder if that'll show up in the recording. Anyways, see you guys in the next video.